Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Trust. How many times in the last 24 hours have you heard that word or read it? Trust. We live in a world in which basic values have been relegated to advertising, copywriting, or to political talking points. They are simply not given the importance they rightfully deserve. In the media, it seems selfish and arrogant behavioral patterns are too often glorified. It becomes common for some people, driven by the high speed of interconnectivity and the demands to do more with less, to get so caught up in their day-to-day responsibilities that they can, lose sight of their goals for personal or professional development. In the recent economic struggles to the promise of a better future, recovering your sense of integrity begins with the very first value we learned as an infant: trust. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 1st, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, what's happening in the IT industry today and how things are different than they were, say, even 2 years ago. But today, as we hear from a 35-year veteran of the software and IT industry, listen not only to his expertise and insights, the difference and impact of desktops versus mobile devices, the consumerization of IT, the debate on bringing your own device to work versus company-required technologies. And then there's apps, the explosion of apps, and how best to design and develop them, and more, much more. An information, knowledge-packed interview you must hear that not only will validate thought leadership, but it will confirm what you need to know now and in the near future about the IT industry. Yet, there's something more. You are going to meet a genuinely nice guy and a truly trusted industry leader and COO of Atlanta-based ObjectFrontier, OFS, Rich Napoli. OFS is an outsourced products development firm that helps software companies and software-enabled businesses to design, develop, and test, maintain software products and applications. It's a company with amazingly low employee attrition rate, far lower than industry competitors, and it is 100% customer referenceable. OFS has offices in New York, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, India, and the Philippines, with clients from independent software vendors to Fortune 1000s in industries like healthcare, financial services, publishing, hospitality, and insurance. Rich has led organizations of over 400 and worked to develop platforms handling over $3 trillion in assets. A CIO at a global investment bank, a CEO with a startup, and also took a $15 million software services firm, grew it, and ended up selling it to an alliance consulting. This is a special Tech Talk you will remember, not just for the valuable information and insights, but for discovering a company that delivers trust and the basic values of the man who is that company's COO, Rich Napoli, COO, ObjectFrontier. Rich, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, Frank, how are you? Thanks for having me on your show.
I've been reading your bio, and time flies when you're having fun. It says you've been in the business for 35 years, experience in just IT alone. Talk about what's happening today in the industry, and how are things different than they were, say, even 2 years ago?
Well, sure. First off, I'm an old, long in the tooth in this business. I actually wrote my first software program like 40 years ago, back in high school. So, seen a lot of changes, and it's interesting in this industry. About every 15 years, there's a pretty fundamental change in IT. Just around the time we get it figured out, the world changes again. So, my day, I started on the mainframe way back when, and in the early 80s, things switched when the PC came out and client-server computing came out. and forced us to really rethink in IT, everything we do, the way we deliver data, the way users experience our software, the way you control it and secure it. And then, again, about 15 years later, just around the time client server is mature and everything's working fine on LANs, along comes this thing called the web, and forces us to rethink everything yet again, the way we deliver apps, the way we deliver data, the user experience, and so on. And yet, once again, around the time that's, up until about 2 years ago, that was pretty well sorted, and now along comes mobile computing. And mobile is doing yet again a transformation to the IT guys that really have to rethink the way applications are built, the way they're delivered. How do you secure this software and the data that's out there? This data is now walking around town with your device in your pocket.
Sure.
So really, we're seeing this is another generational transformation of technology, and forcing us all to really rethink, I think for the better, of how we build applications that engage users and customers and employees to do their work better.
It's mind-boggling, though. When you just yesterday, I happened to be in an AT&T store, and I've actually, my mobile device, as we've come to call them, is an Android, but I'd happened to have been with a friend who was going to the AT&T store, and I couldn't believe the dedicated facility they had to the mobile device and the amount of activity that was going on. You would have thought it was, something like in the old days, a retail sale at Christmas or something. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. Let's talk a little bit about applications. Obviously, there's plenty of different subcategories. Tell our audience about the basic differences, say, of desktop versus mobile, and then within the mobile category, what are the distinctions?
Yep. Yeah, this is something I think the industry is really grappling with right now. So, web apps and desktop apps have a certain look and feel, and you sort of understand how the user is going to be using you because the application is sort of fixed. Here, it's a little different. I mean, you certainly have this new device that has some unique user interface capabilities, right? It's got motion detection, it's got location awareness, it's got speakers and microphones and cameras, all those things, and touch and multi-touch, things that you never really worried about before on a desktop or even a web application. You now have this new colors on your palette to paint with. And then
mine tells me to eat my vegetables.
That's right. Yeah, it's amazing, and there's all kinds of things that you just couldn't conceive of before.
Yeah.
The one I love is the one with the alarm clock that because it has motion detection, you put your iPhone or whatever on your bed, and it detects your body motions at night. And there's some theory that says if you're moving, that means you're in light sleep. If you're not moving, it means you're in deep sleep. So it wakes you up when you're in lighter sleep. Well,
that's where it goes back to what I was saying just a couple of seconds ago, and that is the prospects, the possibilities. Used to be a cliche that said what you know limits what you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And now it's a case where what's left? I mean, the whole concept of innovation and creativity is so borderless. I mean, beyond the technology, the concepts of what applications can replace the functionality or the interrelationship. I think Kurzweil calls it singularity. The combination, it goes beyond convergence. It goes into some kind of man-machine connection that.
You can get really into science fiction world pretty easily.
Well, but the reality of it is that tool exists today. So in a way, a lot of the applications that we're talking about, especially for small to medium-sized businesses, would have been science fiction just a couple of years ago. So you have to come at it with kind of an open mind. So again, the distinctions. Did you finish that?
Yeah. Some of the other ones, between desktop and mobile apps, it's just the way you provision the software is different now. So in the old days, it was sort of the IT guys or your corporation deciding what to put on your desktop or what to give you access to, and they kind of preloaded that up or gave you an access code to get at it. Now the provisioning is happening over the air and typically through app stores like the Apple Store or the Android stores or Google stores, where you're either purchasing the app or downloading the app for free over the air, and it's coming right onto your device. So, the way you have to handle that and authorize and authenticate who's able to do all that is very different than in the sort of controlled IT environment of the past. And then on the consumer side, the other distinction I make is the difference between consumer apps and what we do at OFS. We specialize a lot in enterprise mobile apps. So consumer apps, think Angry Birds, or something like that. That you download it once, it sits on your device, and you play it whenever you want, and you don't have to be communicating with anything. But the modern enterprise apps, that where you're a salesman out in the field or you're a support person out in the field, you need to be tethered back to your enterprise data and servers. So the connectivity to your ERP system and your CRM system has to be there in order for your application to actually work on your device. And then, of course, if you're putting that data down on your device, then the other thing that's different between consumer apps is, nobody cares if you don't care if your Angry Bird score gets out to anybody.
Yeah, I know where you're going, security.
But you certainly care, security-wise, you certainly care if your patient data, your HIPAA-compliant patient data, or your financial data is getting out to someplace where it shouldn't be, or worst case, you lose your device, and now that device has that data and it's walking around somewhere. So the security around enterprise versus consumer is very different, and that's one of the things we focus on here at OFS.
That's something you can really take for granted. I think that's a good message to get out to the listening audience and to our members. I think a lot of them are concerned about security in general, but the more you deal with mobile devices, it almost becomes addictive is not the right word, but you get so used to it that you maybe forget the fact that you've got information on there that can be accessed by others, and you're dealing with enterprise information that can get pretty dangerous. Another phenomenon that you've been reading and hearing a lot about is this idea of commercialization of IT. Share with us about how that's affecting business and how companies are dealing with it.
Sure. I think you meant the consumerization of IT.
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's for long-time IT guys, it's really turning us on our head. So again, in the older days, we in IT sort of drove the implementation and rollout of new software, and we dictated when it came out and how it looked and how it was, how it was used. And the employees kind of just took it for granted. It was what it was. Now, there's this notion of consumerization of IT where they're already experienced software users coming in. They're downloading hundreds of apps that are innovative and clever and easy to use and graphically exciting, and they're coming to the IT guys and saying, "Hey, why can't my enterprise apps look and be as simple and clever to use as these apps are? Make them work. Make them as easy as my other apps are." So it's kind of it's so funny for the IT guys. We've been driving change for 30 years, and all of a sudden now our employee base is driving us to make change. And that's
fascinating, though. When one of the great things that we get an opportunity to do at Tech Talk is to mine deeper into specific verticals or into silos where a lot of the information is isolated and not necessarily shared to discuss in a general audience. And I think a lot of us are dealing with that consumerization of IT. But I think coining it the way that you did and describing it the way you did makes it obviously a clear and understandable challenge and an opportunity.
It is a major opportunity to really empower your workforce or your employee or your customer base as well.
Yeah.
Think of we've done prototypes for hotel chains, that let their concierge, kind of walk around the hotel grounds and sign you up on the spot with his iPad, for spa treatments or restaurant appointments. Think of insurance claims agents going out in the field, being able to take photographs of the accident, being able to interview people that saw the accident with the video, being able to enter all that information, hit the button, and file it off as a claim without ever having to go back to the office.
Now, in that same context, let's talk a little bit about how a company sets a kind of bring your own device strategy. With so many different devices on the market, how do they choose the right development architecture to do something like what you're talking about in a harmonic way for an enterprise? Yeah,
that's a real challenge. So bring your own device. Not every organization is doing that, but a lot of them, sort of in response to the consumerization of IT, they're kind of saying, you know what, guys, employees, bring whatever device you have, and we'll make it work. We're not going to get into the business of buying your device. You bring whatever you want, but now, we'll plug it in and put our enterprise apps on there. Which is great in some ways. It kind of gets you out of the whole business of having to worry about device management and upgrades and so on. It creates several challenges, though, architecturally. First off, as we talked before, it's securing your data, because now this device it's the person's own device, so they have their music and their videos and their pictures all on that device, and now you're putting your corporate data on there, so you have to worry about how do you separate that data from their data, so if they leave, you don't wipe out, wipe the corporate data but not their data. That's one thing. The other thing is, architecturally, there's different ways to build your apps depending upon which devices you're going to be going on. So in some cases, our clients are saying, look, we're going to give our employees that are out in the field, we're going to give them all iPads. So just build me an iPad application. So in those cases, you can pick, strong, what we call native tools that are designed specifically to develop on iPads and take full advantage of the iPad. But there are other times when customers are really saying, look, I really can't dictate what device. It's going to be whatever it is. Whatever software I build has to run across all these devices, Android, BlackBerry, iOS, soon to be the new Windows 8 devices. And so then you have to take an architectural approach. Yeah, it's really complicated. You have to take an architectural approach that, lets you use some of these tools or use HTML5 to build a single version that will run on all those devices.
Well, I think, it's only complicated if you try to contain it all internally and try to do it yourself. I think it really just begs the issue of why companies like ObjectFrontier are so successful. Maybe switch gears a little bit and take a look from the other perspective. How do you begin the process of designing and developing an app for a product or a business?
Yeah. Well, it's normally, you're designing within a certain paradigm and things are reasonably well known and everybody understands the parameters. Here, what we're finding is with many of our customers, these are large corporations or large software companies that are looking to mobilize their enterprise, as we say, and they don't even know what's possible, so they don't even know where to start. Right? The old paradigm is kind of broken for how to build a good user experience, and they don't really know what to do. So what we oftentimes do, we're the specialist in mobility, but not necessarily the specialist in their domain, whether it's financial or information publishing or healthcare or whatever. So typically what we'll do is we'll start off with just a quick sort of time box effort where we'll do some rapid prototyping for them just to show them, have them sit with us for a little bit, do a day or two of brainstorming, what's your business, what are your parameters, what are you trying to accomplish, and then we'll go off and do some creative work and come back and give them a working kind of prototype that lets them, springboard it into the possibilities. Because until you show them something and they're actually, poking and touching on their iPad or whatever,
sure.
Until you do that, they have difficulty even envisioning what's possible. So we typically do that for, it could be as little as 6 or 8 weeks, give them something that's demonstrable. That then triggers a sort of a more formal, sort of requirements process, and then we build the real version. But we find that very effective because otherwise you've built something that just doesn't even, it hasn't tapped into their creative juices.
Well, but in the excitement and in the danger, I got a feeling that a lot of small to medium-sized enterprises, a lot of presidents of companies or even CTOs and CIOs that are faced with the opportunities or the challenges of mobile apps, kind of think of it as the old website development. I can go find me a developer. Anybody can do this. And I think some of them even have had experiences over the last couple of years either trying to build one or they're in the discovery stage now. Let's talk a little bit about the pool of developers that are out there. I mean, give us some insights on how companies are dealing with finding the right people. I mean, how are they training and hiring and outsourcing, or are they outsourcing?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge right now for those kinds of companies that are looking to do it on their own because it's like, again, going back to the model of, this is the fourth generation of technology now, IT technology. Anytime there's a new generation of technology, I remember the first time that Windows came out, everybody wanted a Windows app, but there were no tools, and there were no people that really understood how to, paint buttons and menus and everything, and it was very hard to find those resources. So very similarly, we're in that stage right now where there isn't a lot of talent out there that knows, how to build a clever user app on a mobile device. And so what's happening is either they're bringing their web skills and trying to repurpose those to the mobile device, and they're failing miserably, or they're paying through the nose to get top talent locally, or they're trying to grow their own. A few of them are trying to grow their own, or they're turning to companies like ourselves. We made this decision almost 3 years ago now to, get into the mobile space. We saw it as an up-and-coming technology. We invested in it. We built a lab. We hired a couple of experts, and then we trained a whole bunch of our own guys. We did some, lab work. Then we did some free prototyping work, and now we're doing it for hire. But it takes time. You don't just decide to do that right off the bat. So fortunately, we had that foresight. Now we have 300 guys offshore, about 30 guys here in the States that can that are building mobile apps for these customers.
Well, I think the bottom line of it is any entrepreneur, any business owner, any company, stay true to your core, do what you do well, and now with the complications, the dynamics, we used to call it fluid, then it was dynamic fluidity, and then it became exponential. It has moved into phantasmagoric, and I think it's just a little too spooky to try to do it yourself. Thank God there's places like yours that have taken the time and the investment to make sure to know what's going on and to know how to do it right. I think it's a great opportunity for the companies who need that service, and certainly for ObjectFrontier.
Yeah, no, we're happy to help those people out. We're excited to be in this. It's a great space to be in. It's fun. It's the first time in 40 years I can go to a cocktail party and people can actually relate to what I do. I build.
Is there an app for that?
You build apps. Oh, wow, that's great. So it is. It's become an easier job for me lately.
Well, hey, Rich, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. But I can tell you this: it was very rewarding to our listening audience. I'm sure what you do every day, day in and day out, kind of take it for granted. But some of the information that you shared with us today, very, very, very important. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us on Tech Talk.
We love being part of the Technology Council. We've been members for years, and it's a great organization, and happy to help you guys out in any way we can. And thanks for being on the show. Thanks.